AMD GPU Profile Manager allows users to whitelist FSR4 games. ARM introduces neural super sampling NSS and AI-powered upscaling algorithm. NVIDIA has launched RTX 5090D V224GB for Chinese markets. And lastly, Radeon RX 9060 non-XT has been tested with good performance. Okay, so first let's talk about something interesting, which is the AMD GPU Profile Manager. Why you would be interested in this if you're utilizing 9000 series of AMD GPUs, of course, and you want to taste the FSR4, then this is a very good tool because we already know that FSR4 is out there but hasn't been supported yet in multiple games. But this particular tool can help you utilize FSR4 on FSR 3.1 supported games. So as you can see, it says AMD GPU Profile Manager is a utility for managing AMD GPU application profiles. It provides an interface to view, create, and manage GPU settings on a per application basis. And basically, if you have a 25.5.1 or higher, you can utilize this particular tool to have FSR4 based games whitelisted. Meaning, if you are utilizing this particular tool and if you're playing a game that has FSR 3.1 support, you can forcefully enable FSR4 on that particular game. And as you can see, there has been multiple revisions to this particular tool, and we already have version 0.0.6 that basically does all the things that you can get already. So if you're interested, you can download this from GitHub. Link will be in the description, and you basically want to download these assets right over here. Basically, the AMD GPU Profile Manager version 0.0.6 exe file. If you're wondering what particular games that are supported by FSR 3.1 or FSR 4, this is a total list that also will be in the link. You can check it out. So the list goes on, but one particular caveat is that, as you can see, this is check marked. So you can't really utilize these games for FSR 4 because if that particular game has any sort of anti-cheat, then it is wise to avoid that particular game because it might detect as a cheating software, of course. So it might not be useful. So we have to wait for the official support. Other than that, you're good to go for any kind of AAA titles or indie games. So again, if you're interested in looking into the whole list, the list just goes on. It's pretty huge list, and those who are marked yes, you can safely play the game for sure. No worries with FSR 4, of course. And next up from ARM, they have introduced something groundbreaking, which is ARM neural technology delivering smarter, sharper, and more efficient mobile graphics for developers. So this is ARM's own AI upscale based technology, which is NSS, neural super sampling, and this particular version is for, of course, the mobile devices. So mobile devices finally get a proprietary upscaling tech. So as you can see, it says the highlights here, which is the ARM neural technology is an industry first, adding dedicated neural accelerators to ARM GPUs, bringing PC quality AI powered graphics to mobile for the first time and laying foundation for future on-device AI innovation. So of course, if you want to utilize it, the chipset will require some AI accelerators, definitely. So the examples, as you can see, this is the example we can see. Hold up, let's increase the resolution, and as you can see that the native resolution versus NSS coming from 540p upscale to 1080p. So they're utilizing the 540p image here and then upscaling up to 1080p. Now, of course, this is temporal based, and that's why you would require those AI accelerators on your chipset, definitely. And as it is temporal upscale, it is a trained model, so it would be much better in terms of handling the upscaling tag rather compared to certain other upscalers that we'll see the comparison lately. But for sure, this particular technology looks pretty good. Although you might not be able to tell a big difference because your mobile phone screen isn't that really big, so it is kind of expected that you might not be able to see much of a difference, but you will still see more clarity when you nitpick with this particular tech, of course. So if any developers are interested, they can literally get this from the source code and enable them in their particular game. So it's literally available right here. You can check it out. They did face some challenges, of course, which is, as you can see, ghosting effect was there. There are multiple other things like rectification bias, which has the low resolution input, and then it checks the history and tries to compare it, and then gives you an image, which isn't comparatively perfect because, as you can see, this is the history data, which is completely detailed, where this one doesn't really have much detail on it. So these are some challenges they have faced, but I guess they were able to fix it. So as you can clearly tell that this is the low input, which is obvious, but the output we're getting isn't really perfect compared to the history data or the model trained data. And of course, they're utilizing temporal super sampling, and obviously that is the way to go. And as I said, as they're utilizing temporal upscaling, they would require some AI accelerators. As you can see, this goes on and on. It's like a complete thesis paper, that's for sure. So if you want to look into the results, as you can see, there are some comparisons with ASR and NSS, so definitely better, much better. And as you can see, the previous ARM ASR didn't really have much of a success, and that's why they didn't really bring it in. But NSS it's pretty much evident. As you can see, it looks pretty damn good, definitely. And more up close picture, we can see that blurriness is completely gone. So obviously the anti-aliasing is pretty much good in NSS. And particularly this particular image is quite interesting here. As you can see, it's literally blurry and fades away in ARM ASR, but NSS does hold up pretty well. So yeah, it is gonna be very much useful for much more image clarity, even though in a smaller device the screen isn't really that big, so it doesn't really matter even if you use this particular image. But still, this will add into more depth in the image or in the gameplay, so it will be really good to see. And yeah, as you can see, this particular example doesn't really have much of a difference because again, it's a very zoomed in object, and in a device like this, you might not be able to see much of a difference. Even in a bigger device, you might not be able to see much difference here, but the blurriness is obviously gone, so this is pretty neat. So yeah, hopefully ARM NSS will be able to deliver for the mobile devices and maybe even increase the FPS, of course, because that's the main goal here, image clarity and FPS. And next up, NVIDIA has launched their GeForce RTX 5090D V2 with 24 gigs of VRAM, not 32, so obviously downgrading it for basically China policy and, you know, USA embargoes and stuff. I don't know why they're even doing that, but there's a tariff war. Again, I don't care about the politics, but it is really impacting the business for sure. And that's why they're bringing in this particular V2 version of it, which is the GeForce RTX 5090D V2, which is coming at 16,499 yuan, basically the same price as the 32 gigs version, the previous one, the 5090D 32 gigs, which is kind of bummer because you have to pay a premium for a downgrade. Definitely, you know, nothing you can do about it because, you know, tariff war and restrictions from the USA government for, you know, specifically for China. I don't know why they are doing this, but again, competition, again, country versus country, who cares? But yeah, RTX 5090D is available in China right now, which is the version 2, and you can buy this particular one for a premium price. I'm saying premium because you're getting less than what you're paying. So yeah, it is what it is. So the same specs, nothing really changed. We don't really have to go about it. I just wanted to, like, you know, update it. So yeah, that's it. That's basically it. But to me, it isn't really a big deal. But again, for Chinese market, this is the best you can get. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. And next up, something spicy has dropped from Hurricane5719, so thanks to him. And let's look into this particular information, basically for the 9060 non-XT review. So let's look into some highlights here. So OEM/SI only due to low production volume. That is definitely the bad news here because this particular card is good. We'll come to that. The pricing for the 9060 XT 8 gigs is around 490k. I'm guessing that's Korean currency, and 9060 non-XT expected around 350k to 390k. So again, if we convert it to US dollars, it seems like it would be 250 USDs with tax included or whatever. We don't know for sure, but it seems like if we consider MSRP or retail price, that's gonna be $250. We don't know that because we already know 5060 is gonna be around $300, right? So expect a $50 cut in this particular GPU. We can expect that, obviously, because competition. So 250 for this particular card isn't bad, but isn't great either, considering 5060 shouldn't be priced at $300 anyway. But anyways, we don't have to talk about it anymore. Let's look into the performance, of course. So we have the performance metrics here. As you can see, Cyberpunk 2077 has been tested in multiple games. So let's look into it. So the RX 9060 non-XT 8 gigs, we're looking at an average FPS of 78, which isn't bad when you compare RTX 5050, which is getting only 62. Definitely way ahead compared to the RTX 5050. I don't know why NVIDIA even launched this particular GPU for God knows how many price that you have to pay for this particular card. Is pretty much terrible. For the 9060, we're looking at, again, when they're utilizing the I'm guessing 9800X 3D CPU, it's literally the same, like 78 FPS, so no difference whatsoever. So this this particular test has been done on 7500F, and this particular test has been done on 9800X 3D. But anyways, it won't matter too much. So 9060 XT 8 gigs coming at 84 FPS average. Again, we're not seeing that much of a difference here. So yeah, this makes no sense. The 9060 XT and the 9060 non-XT having such a low difference doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, when you compare RTX 5060, however, it's getting 80 FPS compared to 78 FPS, only 2 FPS gain, basically on par. RX 9060 is on par with RTX 5060, and you're paying less for this particular GPU, which is the RX 9060, so that's pretty good. In Black Myth Wukong, we have a particular test here. Again, 9060 non-XT, of course, the FPS isn't really that great, 34 FPS on average, compared to RTX 5050, which is 28 FPS average. Again, leading by a lot when you consider the percentage is gonna be a lot. And again, if with the 9800X 3D benchmark, let's look into those, which is the RX 9060 gaining 42 FPS. There's a huge difference here, definitely. So this is definitely not GPU bound anymore, definitely CPU bound, because you know it makes a huge difference. 9060 XT is getting 46 FPS and 5060 is getting 44. So definitely our RX 9060 and 5060 are on par in these two particular heavily GPU bound games. So definitely it gives you an idea what you can expect from RX 9060. For the price, it seems to be good. And in God of War, when you're comparing the RX 9060 and the RTX 5050 with the 7500F processor, the RX 9060 is way ahead, 101 FPS, or on average 94 FPS versus 78 FPS on average, of course, which is a huge gain, definitely, without a doubt. And of course, when you look into this particular test with the 9800X 3D, 9060 is getting on average 94 FPS. It didn't really change much with the CPU change. So, okay, that's not too bad. RX 9060 XT is getting 101 and RTX 5060 is getting 101. So in this particular case, 9060 does lose a little bit of performance, but I wouldn't really call that a huge loss. Because, you know, 94 versus 101. And in this particular scenario, as you can see, the FPS is literally the same, 101, 103. So not a huge difference either. Same goes for the 1% lows. We don't really have to talk about them either because it hasn't really changed much. So 9060, 9060 XT, and RTX 5060, they look the same in this particular test on God of War. So quite interesting there. We have PUBG Battlegrounds, and as you can see, this has been tested on the 7500F only. So let's look into that data. We have average FPS of 145 and 133 in RTX 5050. So clearly 9060 is a clear winner. So no doubt about that. And in Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, we have this particular test here. Again, RX 9060 is getting 60 FPS compared to 53 with the RTX 5050. Definitely a good gain. And when you compare this particular test, of course, RX 9060 is getting 62, 67 on 9060 XT, and RTX 5060 is getting 70 FPS. Again, there's a lead here for this particular test for the RTX 5060, as you can clearly tell. 70 FPS versus 62 FPS. Even the current FPS for that particular frame is also changes a lot. So the performance here is more of a difference, quite a big difference, but not huge. Again, inside 10% or 10 to 15% range. So that is also not bad for sure. And lastly, the Red Dead Redemption 2 benchmark here. And as you can see, RX 9060 8 gigs is getting 103 FPS on average versus RTX 5050. For whatever reason, it doesn't run well. 50 FPS. I don't know what's happening here. This is probably a driver issue or like an NVIDIA particular NVIDIA issue. We don't know for sure, but this is embarrassing for the RTX 5050. But anyway, RX 9060 is looking pretty good. Even this particular test with the 9800X 3D, which is not a realistic test, by the way, because you're not gonna pair 9800X 3D with an RX 9060, which doesn't make sense. Rather, this particular test, which is the 7500F, entry level or a budget-friendly CPU, that makes more sense. performance with an RX 9060. But anyways, let's look into this particular text. Of course, the RX 9060 is getting 104, 9060 XT is getting 108, and RTX 5060 is getting only 80 FPS. So definitely something's going on with the NVIDIA drivers in this particular test here. Again, these are all tested on PCIe 5.0, so there shouldn't be any bottleneck. So again, what's happening here with the RTX 5060? No idea. But 9060 is looking pretty good with the 104 FPS, close to 9060 XT. So even compared to 9060 XT, 9060 non-XT is looking pretty good. With the price, of course, knowing it's only $250. Hopefully it will be. But we know for sure it's not gonna be the case. So as you can see, they kind of compared with the 9060 XT versus the 9060 non-XT. The 9060 non-XT significantly looks smaller, though the performance difference is not so much big. So that kind of makes me wonder, the 9060 XT seems like too big, or they just made 9060 non-XT too small for distinction maybe. And clearly you can tell this is a Sapphire Nitro or Sapphire Pulse. I'm guessing it's a Pulse GPU. Yes, it's a Pulse GPU, so not a bad looking card. It's probably gonna come at MSRP, so hopefully, fingers crossed, is gonna be $250. So yeah, we'll see how the performance goes with this particular GPU, of course. It seems pretty good, not gonna lie, for budget-friendly builds. I think that would be a good choice for gamers out there who are in budget, and at $250, it seems like a good choice. Because you can enjoy ray tracing, a good ray tracing, because we already know this particular GPU can handle ray tracing well this time around. And of course, there are other features like FSR 4, FSR 4 Redstone. We'll be seeing those, AV1 support. So it seems like a good package. And it's come with 8 gigs. What else can you expect for that particular price? Although they should at least go for 10 gigs. But anyways, that is all for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.